Ground gas closeouts is starting.
Falcon 9 is in startup. Dragon is in countdown. FTS is armed for launch.
Under a minute now, the FTS, the flight termination system, has been armed.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
SpaceX Dragon, we're go for launch. Let's light this candle.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Stage 1 tanks pressing for flight.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon. Go NASA, go SpaceX, Godspeed, Bob and Doug.
America has launched. So rises the new era of American spaceflight. And with it, the ambition.
Fantastic, right, Miss June?
Amen.
Seconds into flight, stage 1 propulsion.
Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition of godly principles.
Protect the astronauts. God.
Protect the astronauts and protect the country. And re-elect Donald Trump and Mike Pence and team.
Dragon and Falcon 9 and look at them go.
Falcon power telemetry nominal. M1B throttle down.
We're throttling down to get ready for the period of maximum dynamic pressure. We're in the throttle bucket. Reports say all systems are go.
Vehicle is supersonic.
We've exceeded Mach 1 on the Falcon 9.
M1D throttle up.
We're throttling back up to full power as we're through max Q.
Copy 1 Bravo.
And we heard that 1 Bravo call out. That's just the second abort zone that they're in. They'll continue to be on this until the first stage has done its job and they switch over to the second. At this point, Bob and Doug pulling about 2.3 Gs, 2.3 times the Earth's gravity, already moving at over 1,500 miles per hour.
We've heard the call out for MVAC engine chill. That's getting the MVAC engine ready to light. That'll come at about 2:44 into flight. Right now, everything continuing to look good. Next major event coming up is going to be the triple. We'll have main engine cutoff of the 9 first stage engines, stage separation, and then ignition of the second stage engine to continue to carry astronauts into orbit. Coming up in about 20 seconds.
M1D throttle down.
We heard we're throttling down the Merlin engines on the first stage. And we have Miko.
Miko.
2 Alpha.
Falcon stage separation confirmed.
Falcon 2 Alpha. MVAC ignition.
All right, we have stage separation confirmed. The first stage beginning its flight back. The second stage being powered by that single Merlin 1D vacuum engine has ignited and is now carrying Bob and Doug into orbit. So they're going to continue under the power of this second
Stage 2
stage,
propulsion is nominal.
which will cut off at SECO, or second engine cut off at about 8 minutes and 44 seconds into today's flight. So a little over 5 minutes to go still on this second stage. You heard the call out to Alpha, so they're now in the longest abort zone that carries them all the way from about North Carolina up the eastern seaboard, almost to Canada. Things looking good though, getting good call outs, nominal propulsion on that second stage. Bob and Doug continuing to make their way into orbit.
Praise the Lord.
Dragon SpaceX nominal trajectory.
Acquisition of signal, Bermuda.
SpaceX Dragon nominal trajectory.
This is the America we can all be proud of. Red, yellow, brown, black, and white, born and unborn, for they are all precious in Jesus' sight.
That they're using to get telemetry and data back from this spacecraft.
Stage 2 propulsion is still nominal.
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Bob and Doug flying at more than 5,600 miles per hour.
Thank you, Lord, for President Donald Trump and Vice President Mike Pence and team, including Senator Mitch McConnell and our Congressman Thomas Massey, and Rand Paul, our other state senator, who's not up for election this year.
And while they continue uphill, looks like we are getting a view of the first stage as well.
Yep, on your right screen, you can see that first stage with the grid fins deployed. It's making its way back to attempt to land on our drone ship, Of Course, I Still Love You Today. And we're just about a couple minutes away from the entry burn, and that's where 3 of the 9 Merlin engines do ignite to help slow the vehicle down as it re-enters back into the Earth's atmosphere. And then after the entry burn will be the landing burn, which is just a single engine.
SpaceX nominal trajectory.
And you heard
Nominal.
Starting chill for entry burn.
Is that call out? They are still on a nominal trajectory on Dragon, still on second stage, and that's that MVAC engine on second stage on your left screen. Again, on your right screen is that first stage booster coming back towards our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. We're about a minute away from entry burn.
Meanwhile, that second stage continuing to power Dragon into orbit. Again, if you're keeping an eye on that timer, that's going to continue to burn until 8 minutes and 44 seconds into flight. So a little over 2 minutes from now, we'll hear the call out SECO. It'll then be a little
Stage 2 propulsion is still good.
A little over 3 minutes until Dragon physically separates from the second stage of the Falcon 9 after the upper
Dragon
stage gets a
SpaceX
chance.
nominal trajectory.
Dragon copies, nominal trajectory.
Continuing to check in with Bob and Doug as they are on a nominal trajectory. Just about 10 seconds away from that first stage, starting that entry burn on your right screen. We should be able to see that view live.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there is that entry burn beginning. This burn lasts about 36 seconds long.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
While that entry burn continues, we're just about a minute away from SECO. We'll have a number of events all happen in rapid succession. That'll be the second engine cutoff.
Stage 1
We'll be
entry burn
looking for that stage 1 landing burn shortly after.
Yeah, actually just within a few seconds of each other. Such a cool view on your left screen, seeing Bob and Doug on Dragon. Right now you can see the displays that they are seeing right now themselves.
Terminal guidance.
And back to all step.
We are coming up 25 seconds or so away from SECO, or second engine cutoff.
This is also the point where Bob and Doug are experiencing their highest G-force. We're seeing the counter tick up to right about 1.8.
Copy Shannon.
You heard Shannon, so that just means they're in their final abort zones. If they were to abort at this point, it would either be an abort to orbit or to land off the coast of Ireland. Standing by for second
Stage 1 line up
cutoff
startup.
confirmation.
And back throttle step. And back shut down. Stage 1 landing line.
Confirmation of SECO second engine cutoff.
Now we are waiting for our first stage to make its way to our drone ship. Of course, I still love you.
Dragon SpaceX nominal orbital insertion. Launch escape system
Confirmation
is designed.
nominal
Dragon
orbital
copy.
insertion.
Nominal
Stage
orbital
1 landing line
insertion.
deployed.
And what you're seeing on your screen is a live view of our drone ship.
I just want to explain something that you're hearing. You hear a lot about, of course, I still love you. This is the drone ship that is going to be responsible for retrieving the first stage that will descend into the Atlantic. These are reusable. Remember, these boosters or stages are reusable. Two different drone ships will be picking them up. So when you hear that, it's not a country love song. It's really a way and a means by which they reuse these devices when they come back down to Earth before they just fall into the ocean and start from scratch. Elon Musk and SpaceX have found ways to keep reusing them, dramatically cutting the cost of space travel, as well as the cost of this travel. Let's go back.
Good orbital insertion, so that means Falcon 9 and Dragon right now exactly where they're supposed to be.
Kennedy to FRC on recovery 1.
And it's right at about 12 minutes
This is FRC.
when
Can
Dragon will
switch over
separate.
to ECF9?
Looks like we saw a 0G indicator floating around there. I know Bob and Doug owe us a little bit about what exactly that is that they brought up with them.
And before separation, before Dragon initiates separation from the second stage, they do make sure to they do ensure that the vehicle is not spinning and is in good condition before we separate.
That's right, the upper stage does small attitude maneuver using some cold gas thrusters built into the rocket body itself.
Exactly. So we do expect that separation to occur in about a minute from now, but they do wait until they have full confirmation that it is ready to separate. Such cool views. I cannot get over this view that we are seeing right now. Bob and Doug on the right screen inside of Crew Dragon out in space.
Yeah, already 200 kilometers over planet Earth, or a little over 124 miles, traveling in excess of 2,700 meters, 27,000 meters per second, or about 16,000 miles per hour.
That's a little faster than me, Jude.
That separation event should be coming up shortly. Then they'll begin a series of checks on the Draco thrusters that are going to be used to maneuver and then power Dragon on its flight to the International Space Station. Standing by for separation.
Expected loss of signal, walls.
It sounds like we had an expected LOS loss of signal with one of the ground stations. Waiting for confirmation now of that.
Dragon separation confirmed.
Dragon separation confirmed.
There is a great view right in front of you of Dragon separating.
Separation confirmed.
And there's that call out. Dragon is now officially making its way to the International Space
There is a
Station.
great breath of relief right now. Crew Dragon is now in space. It is now on its own. And by the way, it's not Dragon. It's going north of 16,000 miles an hour. And that final separation has it now separated, and it will be on its nearly 19-hour journey to hook up with the International Space Station itself, traveling at about 17,000 miles an hour. To mathematically get that hookup right, you have to be down to 1/10,000th of a decimal in both your speed and timing and visuals. It is so overwhelmingly complicated, it makes me beg for having done better or trying to do better in calculus, but that doesn't even matter here. Tom Jones, the astronaut with us right now. Tom, There was a collective sigh of relief with that final separation. How do you feel?
I'm just amazed. I think this is a fabulous development for the United States space program. And we've got 2 people in orbit on their way to the space station. The system worked perfectly. I had my heart pounding and, tears in my eyes as this launch took place. So this is really a momentous event. I'm so happy for Bob and Doug, and I'm really technically amazed that this system has pulled this off so flawlessly, and it's a great sign of things to come.
Tom, I'm glad the camera wasn't on me through that item, my friend. The one thing that's remarkable I can remember as a kid, and it was only film in those days, and it was provided well after the fact. Who can forget when John Glenn was launched into space, and it was, this grainy film footage. He swore that he was seeing sparks and what looked like fireflies at the time. You could barely make out the image. But now this was so crystal clear, it looked like 8K, I don't know what it was. But between the astronauts in the capsule and then the views of the stages being jettisoned, something we would never see in the past. Some of the later shuttle missions, probably your own, got to show some of that, but not nearly as crisply or as sweepingly as this.
It's very important to share this experience as widely as we can and as intimately and as split second as we can. So we want to appreciate what the astronauts are going through during this harrowing journey to orbit. They're subjected to almost 4 Gs, a lot of vibration from the rocket. And it looked pretty calm on the screen there, but I know the adrenaline was flowing through their veins. They were just as excited as we are down here. So to share that experience and to project yourself into the Crew Dragon on the way to the space station, I think is a way to get people excited about experiencing this on other occasions, maybe going to the Cape personally or taking a ride in 10, 20 years as a tourist or being an astronaut yourself one day. It's a great way to share this dynamic experience.
It's one thing to go through the pressure, talking about the pressure of 4G on the body, but then to know, billions of people who are watching you on live TV as you do so. Are you cognizant of that when you're in that position? It's one thing to say, oh, I'm fine. Wait a minute, the whole world's watching.
Yeah, well, we used to have a joke in the astronaut office, which was, it's great that they can watch me on TV. Uh-oh, they can watch me on TV. So you can get help, but you can also get embarrassed.
Well, there's nothing embarrassing about you, young man. I want to bring Doug Wheelock into this, also like Tom, no stranger to this sort of thing. This 19-hour journey to get to the International Space Station, what they can do about that. Timing is going to be everything. It's a race at a very incredible speed. Everything's got to be precise. Could you play out these next 19 hours?
Absolutely. It's actually great to hear from Tom Jones as well as Charlie Duke, both of them my heroes coming on into the astronaut program. So hello to them. So now we begin it's sort of like a finely choreographed dance between the SpaceX Dragon and the International Space Station. They each have each other's state vector, and now we're going to just try to catch up to it. And traveling at 5 miles per second around the Earth, and we're gonna dock just like with a kiss of the 2 spaceships in space, and it's just amazing. And so there's a series of correction burns to raise our orbit, to circularize our orbit, and over the next 19 hours, we're going to be doing phasing burns, correction burns to try to match precisely up with the International Space Station.
Now, this will also be the same capsule that will return. And we just don't know how and when that will be and which one of the astronauts or cosmonauts presently up at the International Space Station will come back. But they will be coming back in this, right?
That's correct. In fact, a successful mission for us is to have Bob and Doug home safely, and we'd like to get a 30-day mission. If all things are going well, we'll stay till 30 days, and then at that point, if everything's still going well, we hope to extend it out even as long as 120 days.
Wow, that's a long time. For the astronauts, and when you get that relief of once you're in space, once you're in, up out of the atmosphere, you're no longer dealing with the multiple Gs, the 4G thing. I mean, physically you've got to feel a lot better, right? I mean, because that's a pressure cooker.
You do feel a lot better, and when you've asked, and millions of people are watching us on TV, TV, I'm sure that did not go through their mind until that second stage engine cut off, and they could really kind of breathe a sigh of relief and say like, wow, that was amazing, because they were completely focused. I remember on my ascent on both the space shuttle and the Soyuz, I was just completely focused, and I you almost forget to smell the roses along the way, you know. So, but now they're gonna have an experience physiologically. It really changes you, every part of your being. Of course, your physical, the physical things that go on that change in your physiology, in your mental state, your emotional state, and your kind of your spiritual kind of purpose-driven state. You know, it sort of rounds out all those parts of the human existence, and so it really, space changes you, not only physiologically but in other ways as well, and it helps you really appreciate this beautiful blue planet that we live on, for sure.
No, that's for sure. We were showing some images of the astronauts. I didn't want you to think that aliens had taken over the ship. That was footage from earlier today. Those gentlemen and women now wearing the black suits that look almost like ninjas. They have prepared the astronauts and get them set up in the capsule. I didn't want you to think that aliens had somehow taken over the capsule here, but they are well on their way right now. And Astronaut Tom Jones, on this experience that Doug was alluding to here, you got to be relieved when at least you're at this stage, because at least the initial hard part is over. What are some of the bumps now? I don't want to, you know, be a crate hanger.
President Trump and Vice President Pence and Mrs. Pence.
Has to be exact hookup with the International Space Station.
Her name's Karen, isn't it, June?
You experience the launch almost as an observer. You're almost detached from your body.
June had a chance to meet Miss Karen Pence.
And you're monitoring the autopilot. So you're part of the world's greatest physics experiment for the first 8 minutes, 45 seconds here. And then when you get weightless, the starter gun goes off. That's when your mission's really starting, and you've got to perform to everybody's expectations. And so now you're getting ready to transition the ship from blast-off mode to orbital mode, switching software modes over, getting rid of getting the solar cells online to charge your batteries on board, to convert the cabin to orbit mode, get out of your spacesuits, and prepare the life support systems for orbital mode. So all of the systems checkouts occur, and that's where these test pilots are going to be at their best.
The only thing I got like into, and you guys, you and Doug are the heroes here, and the astronauts, the Worldtron at an amusement park. That's my experience here, and I got plenty sick on that. So I can imagine what that pressure's got to be. But Tom, when you look at this now and what it showed private enterprise can do, working in conjunction with NASA, and this is one of the toughest that men can pull off. This is a very good sign, I would imagine.
Well, it's going to be fantastic to have NASA engage with these two suppliers of transportation to the space station. It's a very healthy commercial sector that's being demonstrated here today. We can go on to tourism, we can go on to private research modules at the space station and independent labs in orbit. And that's a world-beating capability. Nobody else has that capability. We're now extending this innovation, to low Earth orbit. And beyond that, I can see companies like Blue Origin, SpaceX, Boeing, Sierra Nevada, all being part of our return to the moon. And they might be supplying the landers that take astronauts back to the surface in just a few years.
That's a very good point. You've got multiple private players there already. Jeff Bezos, he's knee deep in this stuff. Richard Branson, so they all want a future part to play in all of that. Tom, thank you very much. I want to go to Kristen Fisher right now. Kristen, in case you didn't know, besides being a Crackerjack reporter, correspondent, anchor, she is the daughter of astronauts. You might have heard that once or twice here. I'm always fascinated by that because I remember quite well, seeing as I'm so much older than Kristen, she was called our first astronaut. But she eschewed going into space, fortunately went into journalism. The world is grateful for that. But Kristen, when I'm reading about the fact that this is going to lead to space tourism, you and I might get a second shot at this. I don't know how you feel about that, but what do you think?
Neil, we could be the first journalists in space. Think about it. And boy, what a launch after all those concerns about weather. All the concerns, the scrub on Wednesday. Today they ended up getting beautiful blue skies, and now what a day for both NASA, SpaceX, and Elon Musk. What he has been able to accomplish in just a few short years. There were a lot of people who didn't think he would be able to do it. Now his company has become the first to put astronauts from any country into orbit. They've also been able to prove that they can land the rocket, the Falcon 9 rocket, on that drone ship and reuse it in the future. And that is so critical for the future of human spaceflight because it makes it more affordable. It makes it more financially feasible to have more frequent rocket launches. And of course, this has also been such a huge day for President Trump. He went down on Wednesday, he went back again. He wanted to be there. He has made space such a huge priority in his administration. And right after the launch, he was asked, why did you want to be there? Why was this so important to you? Here was his response. Do we have that soundbite?
Kristen, I don't believe we have that. No, Kristen, we do not.
Sorry,
I
we don't have
apologize
that
for that.
soundbite,
I know
well-
you're right. Go ahead.
Not a problem, but I can paraphrase. He was basically saying that I wanted to be there for this moment because it was such a historic moment for NASA, for SpaceX, and for the entire country. And as you hear these protests behind me becoming a little bit louder, it's just striking the contrast between you watch this moment of American ingenuity, the greatest things that America can accomplish, and you contrast that with these peaceful protests happening right outside the White House. And actually, I've just been told that we do have this soundbite from President Trump, so I'd like to go ahead and play it.
Fantastic.
So I'm very sorry about that. We do not have it here, but as Kristen said, and we're going to go back to her a little bit later. She's outside the White House. She is competing with protesters there. They were there last night. It got pretty hairy last night. But as Kristen also pointed out, the backdrop is kind of interesting. In case you're getting a case of deja vu, it has happened before. Doesn't Tracy Cernan know it? The daughter of Gene Cernan, the last man to walk on the moon. Tracy, I was thinking of you ahead of this. Very honored to have you again. When your dad was up there, hopping around on the moon and trying to sing, I might point out, I stress trying to sing. He was, we were in the middle of the Vietnam War. We had just been a few years out from the 60s and assassinations and protests and riots. And yet there was this magic, this moment that showed the better part of the human species. And I remember he pondered that and said, this is all good. And looking back at the Earth, he would say, it is a beautiful place. But the backdrop was startling, and the time was startling. I'm thinking even now, some of the same stuff, alive and well, protest in Hong Kong, protest in this country, and man conquering the stars. You must have had the same sense of deja vu?
Yes, I think so. He always felt bad because he was in his little bubble of the space program and the space race, and they were headed there, and his colleagues, his Navy pilots and buddies, were fighting Vietnam War. And he always had a lot of turmoil with that, feeling he should be with his crew members. But he was there doing something that was important, and the space race was what was important at that time. And once again, I really feel good about the fact that today was successful and today went well, and it looks like we are making our next big step to go back to the moon and create some excitement once again about the space program.
I think of you too, Tracy, talk about timing. We're joking with Kristen Fisher, of course, the daughter of astronauts. But even Kristen can't compare with you because your dad left your initials on the lunar surface, and I think you even have a lunar rock named after you. I would feel compelled to tell Kristen, top that. How did you manage that?
Oh, I don't know. Well, I guess he was up there thinking about me in the middle of doing all his work and being doing what he was supposed to do. So I guess that's pretty special. And having a rock named after me, that was pretty neat. Thanks to Mr. Bean, he's painted that picture, and we can all remember that.
You're talking about the Apollo 12 astronaut, and then it went into folklore. But namely, the fact that your initials are carved in there, that they're not going to be moving anywhere anytime soon. Do you ever look up like your dad used to think, hey, in a way, I'm up there.
Yeah, I do. A part of Daddy's up there, and I look up there every time I see that moon, thinking about him. And those initials, one day I hope someone can come back and go back up there and take a picture and just create those memories again. But it is very special, and I guess I am the only unique one that has it up there.
Well, you should be honored, and I know we thought the world of you. Tracy, I never forget your kindness at your dad's funeral, allowing me and my son Bradley to be there with your family. It was a very, very special moment. Your dad was a very, very special hero. Thank you very much, and thank you for what you've contributed to getting people excited about space.
Oh, we hope so. I hope this is the beginning again. Really do. And thank you, Neil, for always being there for Dad.
Well, it's amazing. I like the way you said that. It's a beginning again. Tracy Cernan, the daughter of the last man to walk on the moon and remember what's possible. The same Gene Cernan who said, I don't care who picks up the tab as long as we get back there. He was not loath to private enterprise making money. He was up to somehow, some way getting there. When I asked him what John Kennedy would think of a private Kennedy doing that or a private company doing that, he would say, Kennedy would probably just say, whoever can sign the damn check. He's probably right. He was probably right. I want you to stay tuned to Fox News Channel for this continued coverage of this very historic mission. It has just started. It's nowhere near done. I'm Neil Cavuto.
Up in Pensacola, when they were showing his film, the documentary made about him, Last Man on Earth. And the man was such a gem, just an absolutely lovely man. As for today, whoa, what a launch. Very exciting. All of the build-up, the 50-50 all day, whether it was going to launch or not, whether the weather would cooperate, as it did not cooperate on Wednesday when it was scrubbed. But man, skies opened up and got all blue right around 3 o'clock. All the way to the 3:22 Eastern launch time, and it was 3, 2, 1 ignition, and it shot up there. It is so loud. If you're not within 3 miles like we are, it's hard to really describe, but it's like a bunch of bass drums just blum, 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 and it's loud. You can kind of feel it. It's so powerful. And it shot up there. Everything went well. 2.5 minutes later, the first stage rocket dropped off, and we believe successfully landed on the drone ship, because I heard a bunch of cheers out of Mission Control in Hawthorne at the SpaceX headquarters right around the time that it would have landed. The signal was lost at the last second from the drone ship out there in the Atlantic, hundreds of miles away. So you can understand why the signal potentially will get lost in the horizon. But the second stage did its job as well. It dropped off, and now the crew capsule, the Dragon, is now all on its own power, heading in orbit, or probably is in orbit by now, on its way to the International Space Station. It'll make a few orbits around the Earth as it makes its way higher and higher and higher to an altitude of roughly 250 miles above the planet. And then around 10:23 in the morning Eastern time tomorrow, that will end the 19-hour trip from the launch pad. And then Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley, the astronauts on board, it'll mostly be computer driven. The actual docking with the hatch, as the one astronaut earlier today mentioned, is kind of like two space capsules, spaceships kissing out there in space. It's very slow, it's very precise, it's lined up, and SpaceX has done it quite successfully 20 times with cargo ships. So the concern is really minimal that anything could go wrong with the docking tomorrow. Once it does dock, you know, there are resident astronauts, cosmonauts, and European Space Agency people up there on board working and doing research as we speak. They will be welcomed aboard after they open the hatch, and then Hurley and Behnken will move in for 1 month or possibly up to 4 months. The date of their return back here to planet Earth really depends on the first official crew launch that SpaceX and NASA are targeting for August 30th. So last year, empty capsule with just that mannequin, test flight number 1. Today's test flight number 2 with astronauts, just to make sure everything performs as expected and is needed on that capsule. You know, things are different when you've got humans on board, especially very experienced astronauts. They can know immediately whether something's not working right or wrong. And then we begin the next phase for NASA, as well as the commercial spaceflight industry. Boeing has a campus right over there, and they're building 3 of their capsules right now to again take astronauts as well up to the space station. They haven't set a target date for their first crewed launch, but they have already had a successful, or for the most part, successful test flight with their capsule. It didn't quite make it all the way to the space station, but they did get a lot of learning out of it. So big.
I want to just thank, though, the Secret Service. They were so professional last night. It was incredible. They were so professional. They were really great. It's a great state, Minnesota. They've got to get tougher. They've got to get tougher. They've got to be strong. Honor the memory of George Floyd. Honor his memory.
Mark Meredith is live at the White House for us with more. Mark?
Good afternoon, Dana. President Trump is due back at the White House a little bit later on this afternoon after, as you mentioned, the trip down to Florida for the SpaceX launch. Before he left Washington, he addressed the crisis that we're seeing in Minnesota and in states all over the country. The president blamed the civil unrest on Antifa, but he also criticized local leaders, including the governor of Minnesota on the ground. Here's what he had to say earlier today.
They've got to be tough. They've got to be smart. We have our military ready, willing, and able, if they ever want to call our military. But we can have troops on the ground very quickly if they ever want our military.
Meantime, the president is also praising the United States Secret Service for their response to last night's demonstrations outside the White House. The Secret Service says 6 people were arrested after demonstrators knocked down barriers. They're also accusing these demonstrators of throwing things like bricks, rocks, and fireworks at their agents. But they also want to be clear that neither the Secret Service, neither the First Lady nor the president were hurt as to what was going on. We have been watching to see what things have been like here on the ground outside of the White House all afternoon. When we came to work this morning, we did see a noticeable increase in the amount of agents that are out here, those uniformed agents, and we just saw a group of protesters go by the White House. Lafayette Park remains shut down at this hour, and those protesters, as they go by, they did not really come close to the White House, but the Secret Service that was out there, they did have their riot gear on. It is possible that we could see additional demonstrations a little bit later on today, and the president himself has been tweeting about this. This is what he had to say again before he left the White House this morning. He said the professionally managed so-called protesters at the White House had little to do with the memory of George Floyd. They were just there to cause trouble. The Secret Service handled them easily. Tonight, I understand, is MAGA night at the White House. The president then elaborated on this before leaving Washington.
I heard that MAGA wanted to be there. A lot of MAGA was going to be there. I have no idea if that's true or not. But they love our country. Remember that MAGA is just an expression, but MAGA loves our country.
It's unclear how many people would show up for such an event tonight and whether or not any of the security situation that's still in place right now would change before that were to happen. We expect the president due back at the White House around 8 o'clock this evening. Dana?
All right. Oh, so we don't have sound. Okay. I'm sorry. It's been a little unclear about what's happening here. So as you can see, the 2 men met. It's a pretty big deal. A real accomplishment for both of them. Accomplishment for the United States.